Hello, everyone. Hello to the Shins. Welcome back to our class. So, we are now in chapter number 2, and this is entitled Understanding Counseling. In our previous chapter, we learned the differences between social sciences and applied social sciences. So now let's go to the first part for the applied social sciences, which is the understanding counseling. So after this lesson or after this chapter, we are going to define counseling and mm, discuss its various aspects, and then identify and discuss the goals and scope of counseling. And third, it's to demonstrate comprehension or counseling principles. So let's try to know what is counseling. So counseling connotes many different activities. The term has been applied to the activities of school guidance counselors, lawyers, insurance advisors, human resource specialists, and even doctors, among others. So this is very important because you are giving a qualified advice. So in reality, guys, counseling is more than advice giving. So most likely, it is more than like just nagbibigay lang ng advice. So its emergence as a profession is rooted in the pioneering publication of Carl Rogers, which is Counseling and Psychotherapy in the year 1942. So Rogers pointed out that the solutions to any individual's problem lie largely within that person. So tayo daw ang may kakayanan na maglutas ng ating mga problema. So Rogers characterized counseling as a partnership in which counselors helps clients better understand themselves. So partner siya. So counselor plus client. They need to better understand themselves. So their problems and their personal resources for change. So ano bang kakayanan ko para ma-change ang mga problema na meron ako? Now let's go to the next one. So what is counseling pala? So, when we say counseling, counseling is an interactive process characterized by a unique relationship between the counselor and client, so which leads to the clients experiencing changes in one or more of the following areas. So, first is behavior. So, this refers in the client's action as well as his or her coping skills, decision making skills, and interaction skills. So, ano ba yung pinapakita na behavior ng client? So, sometimes, hindi natin kaya na i-accept yung na pumanaw na ang mahal natin sa buhay. Yeah, so that is coping skills and decision making skills. Like for example, euthanasia, sino yung iniligtas mo? Ang wife mo ba or ang anak mo? And then interaction skills. So, meron tayong mga introvert na mahilig mag-isa. So sometimes they need time to be alone para mas maintindihan nila ang kanilang sarili. Next is beliefs. Second, so this refers to ways of thinking about oneself, to others and the world, or emotional concerns relating to these perceptions. So ano ba yung mga uh, pinapaniwalaan mo? So sometimes we are creating our own world, our own emotions, and then our own perceptions na hindi maintindihan ng ibang tao. Next nito is the level of emotional stress. So, kailangan natin ng tulong kasi sobrang taas na ng emotional distress natin. So, this relates to uncomfortable feelings or reactions to environmental stress. Like, meron talagang tao na hindi natin gusto, na nakasakit sa atin, na bibigay sa atin ng uncomfortable feelings and high level of emotional distress. So, yan ay galing kay Patterson. and Wolfall 2000. So ano pala yung objectives ng counseling? So ano pala yung gustong ma-attain ng counseling, guys? So counseling, guys, this pertains to telling or the objective of counseling is achieved through one or more of the following. So ito yung mga gusto ma-achieve ng counseling. We have advice, reassurance, communication, release of emotional tension, clarified thinking, and reorientation. So first is advice. So ito ay magbigay ng professional advice. So always remember that counseling is more than an advice giving activity. So, to give useful advice, the counselor should be able to make judgment about the client's problems and lay out the possible courses of action. So, dapat ano talaga, like putting yourself into one's shoes. So, i-experience mo talaga kung ano ba talaga yung nararamdaman ng client mo, ano ba talaga yung problema ng client mo before ka makapagbibigay ng professional advice and even possible courses of action. Now, let's have reassurance. So, ano pala itong reassurance? So, this involves giving the client courage and confidence that he or she is capable of facing a problem. So, binibigyan natin ng kakayanan yung ating client na kaya mo talaga yan. Kaya mong lampasan ang mga problema na yan. So one problem with reassurance is that the client does not always accept it. Ang problema nito is a lot of clients or a lot of tao na hindi talaga nila tinatanaw, hindi nila tinitingnan ang kanilang sarili na kaya nilang sulatasin yun. Like, kailangan talaga nila ng tulong ng iba. So, dito, if you are going to be a counselor, so you need to give your client courage and confidence that he or she is capable of facing a problem. That is reassurance. Next, third is communication. So, ano pala yung communication dito sa functions of counseling? So, this entails providing information and understanding. Counseling is an exchange of ideas and feelings between two people, the counselor and the client. So, mag-exchange kayo si counselor at si client. Hindi pwede na si counselor lang yung bigay ng ideas. Kundi dapat si client din ay sumagot sa kanya sa counselor's questions para magkaroon sila ng mutual feelings and understanding about the problem. Next is fourth, release of emotional tensions. Yeah, we have a lot of stress, frustrations, and we also have emotional catharsis. So, kailangan natin tulungan yung client natin as a counselor na ma-release yung kanilang emotional tension. So, some of them like they will act something like for example, you will act as a child para lang ma-release yung emotional tension. Yung iba nagta-travel para ma-release yung emotional tension. So, depends upon the problem. So, there is also a specific way of handling the problem or minagawang activity nila para ma-release yung emotional tension. Next, number 5, clarified thinking. So, ano ba tong clarified thinking? So always remember that through emotional release, the counselor now encourages the clients to engage in a more coherent, rational, and mature thought. So dahil ito na-release na yung emotional tension mo, meron ka ng magandang uh, rational thought, mature thought. So from that, mm, meron ka ng magiging magandang desisyon and choices. And then reorientation. So ano pala tong reorientation? So this involves a transformation in the client through a change in his or her goals, values, and mental models. So ito yung tinutulungan na natin ngayon na ma-transform itong ating client. So, ma-change na kanyang perspectives in life, kanyang goals, magkaroon na siya ng values, magkaroon na siya ng mental models, and then magkaroon na siya ng ma-recognize na niya kung ano yung problema at ma-accept na niya kung ano yung mga kakayanan niya at ano yung mga strengths niya. That is for reorientation. So, Next, if you are going to be a counselor, so this is very important. So ano pala yung components ng counseling? So the important components of counseling are the counselor, the client, and the working alliance between them. So ano pala si counselor? So counselor is a trained professional who serves clients through therapeutic communication, which entails encouraging disclosure, listening to the client, and giving advice. So ito na talaga yung nagbibigay ng professional advice to to the problem of different clients. So they are the counselor. So most likely they are psychologists, lawyers, mm, and a lot more. So, so ano pala yung dapat na ipopossess na isang counselor? So always remember guys, a counselor should have a genuine desire to help the client. So dapat ano talaga, gustuhin talaga ni counselor na tulungan si client. Hindi bawal dito yung counselor na makasarili. Second, an acceptance of and respect for the client. So, hindi natin pwede i-share sa iba kung ano yung shinare sa atin ng client natin. So, kailangan natin i-accept and then respect our clients. So, third is an ability to listen and understand the client's psychological pain from his or her perspective. So, that's why it's very important that you will learn empathy as a counselor. So, kailangan natin makinig sa kanila, kailangan natin silang intindihin na putting your own or putting oneself to your own or the other or the client's perspective. So, dapat malaman natin kung ano talaga kasakit, mawalan ng isang parent. So, that's why a lot of counselor they have different no talaga like for example marriage counselor, psychological counselor. So meron talaga silang specific na kakayanan. So because this is very important, like kailangan mo malaman kung ano talaga ang nararamdaman at pain from the client's perspective. So, a counselor, too, if you are excellent in therapeutic communication skills, like magaling kang mag-advise, magaling kang mag-guide, mag-understand sa situation ng ibang tao or your client, so it means you are making yourself a great counselor. So, it also needs effective communication skills with the help of the counselor because you are going to guide your client, okay, in understanding him or herself or the situation the client is in. So, sino ba si client? So, always remember the client brings to counseling a number of ingredients which include the following. So, ito yung mga nangangailangan ng tulong ng counselor, si client. So, sa personal pain. So, ano ba ang nandito sa ating client? First is the personal pain. So this pain may be a reaction to an adversity like the death of loved one, like namatayan ng boyfriend, ng girlfriend, lalo na pag ang tagal na nila sa relationship. So, parang hindi talaga nila ma-accept na wala na yung loved ones nila. Or it may be an enduring concern like chronic low esteem. So, yung personal plane, like for example, you have a very low self-esteem. So, most likely, maapektuhan ka rin talaga. So that is the client. They have personal problem. They also have or they need or they are seeking help by choice. So counseling is based on the assumption that the client has voluntarily decided to seek help. So kailangan nila ng tulong ng counselor. Third, they have personal issues. So counselors hold the view that all client behaviors are a result of the issues they are struggling with. So meron talaga mga personal issues like for example, the breakup. Sobrang sakit. Hindi talaga yan maano hindi talaga mawala lang ng mga salita lang ng ibang tao, like ng pag-hug. Hindi talaga yan mawala ng isang iglap lang kasi minahal mo yung tao, you have your personal issues. So that's why the client would be in a lot of pain. And as a counselor, we need to understand them. Next is the working alliance between counselor and client. So from Ed Borden, 1979, so he argued that counseling and psychotherapy can be best understood as an alliance. So si counseling daw, as kasi psychotherapy, dapat mag-allied sila or magkaalyansa. So, para matulungan ang client. So, this relationship is described as the counseling bond. So, ito yung tinatawag nating counseling bond. So, the counseling bond has several components. So, ito yung mga working alliance. Actually, there are a lot of working alliance like counselor plus lawyer, counselor plus psychotherapist, counselor plus doctor. So, that is a working alliance. Kung ano yung talagang kinakailangan ng ating clients. Now, let's have the counseling bond had or has several components. So, mayroong several components ang counseling bond. First, ito is the core conditions. So, which are conditions that bring about constructive personality in the client? So, ano bang kakayanan ng ating client to construct their own personality? So, sometimes they are in a very low condition. So, that's why, ano talaga, binibuild pa natin yung core conditions nila. Next is empathy. So, kailangan mo talaga magkaroon ng empathetic or empathy spirit. So, empathy is experience when counselors put themselves in the place of the client. So, dapat malaman mo kung paano or how to put yourself in one's shoes. So, para malaman mo ko talaga kung ano yung pain na nararamdaman nila. Next is respect. So this is very important in counseling. So counselors positive regard for the client. So dapat ano talaga kung ano mang ibibigay nila ng mga shocking truth, you need to respect it. And then for Rogers in 1957, originally called the unconditional positive regard. So the UPR, which involves caring for the client without setting conditions for doing so because meron tayong sineset na standards sa bawat isa natin. So in counseling or being a counselor, you need to break that. So we need to unconditional positive regard. Kahit gaano ka-unlovable ng ating clients, we need to respect them. And we need to mhm, always remember that we need to it is without setting conditions. And then, genuineness. So, dapat totoo talaga tayo kasi malalaman ng isang tao kung totoo tayo sa kanila or hindi. So, may balaan gyapon kung si plastic or dili in here in the counselor or counseling. So, genuineness means being consistent in one's feelings, thoughts, and behavior in the relationship. So that is very important na genuine or totoo talaga yung pinapakita mo sa iyong client. Next, let's have the next one. So, we have the outcome goals of counseling. So, ano pala yung goals na gusto ma-attain ng ating counseling. So, always remember that counseling leads to change in the client. So, gusto natin magkaroon ng change or change in perspective ang ating client. Imbis na gusto na niya magpakamatay, magkakita siya ng hope sa kanyang buhay. So this is true for both individual counseling and group counseling, and whether that express intent in counseling is developmental. So gusto natin mag-develop ang ating clients. It means oriented toward personal growth. So, kung ito lang yung self-esteem mo, 10% lang, the counselor would help you to motivate you and to have a personal growth, maybe in a certain percentage. Next is remedial. So, when we say remedial, it's oriented toward the resolution of the problem. So, ano ba gagawin natin? Ano ba maipapa-experience natin para masolusyonan ang problema ng ating client. Now, let's have the stages of counseling. So, ano pala yung stages of counseling? So, counseling has a set of stages. So, hindi basta-basta mabigay ka na ng advice. Hindi basta-basta na, interviewin mo siya. Kailangan pa natin mag-build ng relationship. mag-build ng bond sa ating client. That's why here's the stages of counseling process. So counseling has a set of stages that follow a complete sequence. These stages are present whatever the setting of the counseling process. Whether in school, so kung anong gusto mong career sa buhay, hindi papayag si mama, hindi papayag si papa. In the guidance counseling, you are advised and you are in the process to really get what you really want in life. What are your passions? And we also have the government sector. So we have the private sector, the non-governmental organizations, or civil society. So what is the first stage of counseling process? First is the initial disclosure. So at the start of the counselor and the client do not know each other. So that's why the counselor will build rapport, the counselor will build a bond or respect and mutual agreement within them na ano talaga, sasabihin mo talaga sa kanya na walang hindi ito ipagsasabi kahit kanino. You are safe here. Your secrets are safe here. To encourage disclosure, the counselor must set conditions that promote trust. So ito talaga yung pinaka-importante sa first stage. Dapat mag-trust si client kang counselor. And then Rogers in 1951 described the trust-promoting conditions as the characters of the helping relationship. So, in the first stage, dapat ito talaga yung mangyayari. So you emphasize empathy, and then you have congruence or genuineness. Dapat malaman mo talaga at ma-understand mo siya or the client. You need to have unconditional positive regard. You need to accept him or her bisan pag unsa na iyahang gi-share sa imuha nga makaguba o perspective in life. So you need to accept him or her. Next is concreteness. So using clear language to describe the client's life situation. So dapat grasp mo talaga, makuha mo talaga kung ano talaga ang problema ng client or ang situation ng client. That is the first stage, initial disclosure. Next is the second stage. So in the second stage, we have in-depth exploration na to. So sometimes it takes months, days para ano talaga yung stages and process of counseling. So second is the in-depth exploration. So the client should gain a clearer understanding of his or her life concerns and begin to develop a new sense of hope. So from there, so you, the counselor, and the client would understand unsa talaga iyang concerns, talaga iyang problema. Uh, and then, from that problem, he or she would develop a sense of hope. May pag-asa pa sa buhay niya. And at this stage, a broad outline of the pattern of desired change is beginning to emerge. So sa second stage, mag-start na now mag-emerge na ang desired change. So first is immediacy. So meaning, it is important quality that counselors must exhibit in the second stage. So immediacy can be characterized in three different ways. So, malaman mo talaga kung ano talaga immediate reaction, immediate solution from this problem. And the next is assessment. So, from the assessment, so you need to know or this is the process of information or gathering information that takes into account the client's history. So, ano pa talaga yung history niya? Bakit siya may phobia of heights? O bakit siya may fear of snakes? Uh, it is because of a certain history or a certain things that happen in or life circumstances na itabo sa iyang kinabuhi. So next is diagnosis. So on the other hand, is the actual identification. Now, you are going to identify unsa ang iyang problem. So that is the second stage. And then the third stage is commitment to action. So, anong gagawin mo para matulungan yung ating client? So, now, the client must decide on how to accomplish the goals defined during the second stage. Ano talaga yung goals na defined sa second stage? Kailangan ganito, kailangan ganyan, kailangan humawak ka ng snake para malabanan mo yung takot mo sa snake. Kailangan pumunta ka sa matataas na lugar para malabanan mo kung yung takot mo sa matataas na lugar. So he or she must identify or choose the possible courses of action. So saan doon ang kaya niyang gawin? Saan doon ang the best possible outcome na kanyang gustong mangyari sa kanyang problema. So now let's go to the types of counseling. So there are three types in our book, three types of counseling. First is directive counseling. So, si directive counseling involves learning about planning to solve and motivating a client to act on his or her problems. So, this is the common one. Direct yun siya. So, meaning si client, tatagan mo og plan, unsa pag-solve sila sa iyahang problema, unsa ang pag-motivate niya, unsa ang pag-act sa iyahang problema. So that is the common one. But the second is non-directive or client-centered counseling. So hindi ka talaga, as a counselor, you will take up your hand and it is in the process of the acceptance of the client. So end of continuum siya. So is the opposite end of the continuum. So it involves skillful listening to and encouraging a client to explain his or her issues and then understand them and then determine appropriate solution. So dito, ano mo lang talaga, like you are just learning, you are just listening kasi there are some problems na pag makikinig ka lang, maano na talaga sila, mahawas na sila sa ilang issues or mga heartaches. So, in that way, you will suggest different or appropriate solutions and then mamili lang yung client kung anong gusto niyang solution or pinakamagandang gawin sa kanyang problema. Next is participative counseling. So, also called cooperative counseling, meaning marami kayo. So this is now a mutual counselor-client relationship that establish a cooperative exchange of ideas to help solve a client's problem. So directive counseling, so si counselor lang ang nag-direct kung anong buhaton ni client. While the client-centered counseling or non-directive, si client karon ang mamili kung unsay nindot nga solusyon or way na masolve ang problema. Sa participative counseling, duha sila. So, magtinabangay karon si counselor and si client para masolve ang ilahang problema. So, what if pinani akong buhaton? Muhatag og idea si client. What if pinani ang buhaton sa client? Muhatag og idea si counselor. So, that is for the types of counseling. So I hope malaman ninyo or maisip ninyo na maganda din ang maging counselor. So it is also a very nice job. So what is the ethical dimension of counseling? So always remember, counselors are expected to value ethical practices in their work. So some important ethical considerations in counseling, so ito yung mga ah, importante na ethical consideration ng isang counselor in the process of counseling. First is the informed consent. So this means that the counselor has informed the client of what to expect in the counseling process and that the client has given his or her consent to participate in the process. So from the certain point na malaman mo na kung ano yung problema ng client, so you need to assess and to inform the client. Kailangan mong sabihin sa kanya or ipaalam sa kanya na ganito yung process ng ating counseling. Next, second is confidentiality. So this means that the counselor should not disclose confidential information entrusted to him or her by his or her client. So pwede kang pwede kang mapriso kung imuhang i-disclose ang iyahang mga problema. Like for example, labi siya problema sa pag-isip. So that is a big no-no in counseling. So you need to keep that very important characteristics and ideas and problems na iyahang na an experience. Next is protection and development. So, in the protection and development, the counselor expected to protect the welfare of his or her client as well as his or her own. So, dili lang nimo protektahan ang client, kundi protektahan po nimo imo ang sarili. Kasi there are also uh, some instances na, for example, nakapatay ang imuhang client. So, you need also to weigh the right and wrong. Like, because pwede mong gamay mo accessory sa murder kung wala to nimo siya gisuklong. So you need to have the protection and development. So maprotektahan nimo imong sarili ug ang imong client and then mo develop pa jud. So that is for number 3. So it's so nice to be a counselor. It is not just a very putyo-putyo nga trabaho, lisod kay siya nga trabaho, and then if you love to help other people, then this job is very nice for you. So thank you so much for listening, mga kayums. And this is again your learning partner, teacher Anna. I hope you learned a lot from our lesson today. So please read and review everything because we will have an assessment after this. See you and make your parents proud. Goodbye, everyone.